Starting the afternoon session is Galvin. What I will remember about Galvin forever is the first draft of his narratio where we talked about oligarchies forever, right?
Yeah.
And still, you should have oligarchy in here somewhere, right?
Oh.
Okay, good. So these are Galvin's words. He says, first of all, I would like to thank Miss Anita Maria for giving me all the insights to my thesis, guiding me throughout the creation of this year-long project, and also for giving me some snacks every now and then when I visit your class. Second of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Wade for not crashing out and also for putting up with all my drafts that were submitted late. And last of all, I'd like to thank my parents for creating me, allowing me to exist at this very moment. So Galvin's title is A Country Doesn't Run for Free, they run on SMEs. Indonesian government should further support SMEs. Give me just a second to start the timer and I'll tell you when you can start. All right, you can start when ready.
On one uneventful day, you wake up to eat your dry, plain, boring, routine breakfast. Your day seems somber, gloomy, as if time has frozen, keeping things at a standstill, ever changing. As you get ready for work, you step outside to see rows and rows of 1 to 2 story buildings surrounded by this industrial mega complex owned by the government. You take a bus to work. The bus seems to have not been adequately maintained for the past few years. The bus itself appears to be a 90s model. As you approach the industrial mega complex, you arrive there along with everybody else at the same time. You give a dry hello to everybody else, and they give the same lifeless hello to you back. As you sit in your cubicle, the floorboard creaks as it gives way to your weight. You work day and night, working for the country, stuck in a society where everybody's dreams and aspiration is to outperform everybody else in the firm. You slog throughout the entire day as slowly as the gas light bulb burns. Later that evening, you take the same old bus back to your old withered home, just for the entire cycle to repeat all over again. This is the example of the absence of SME in modern society. Without SME in the center of modern economics, giving innovations and adding value to new industries, society as a whole and life becomes stale. Global cooperation has employed Indonesia as a breeding ground, filled with optimistic futures and resources. Just to list a few of the natural resources that Indonesia has in abundance, only solidifies Indonesia as a naturally gifted country. Gold, bauxite, copper, petrol, tin, nickel, iron, non-metal minerals, industrial minerals are only some that only solidifies Indonesia as naturally gifted. With this, Indonesia presents itself as a bulk raw exporter as of currently. However, we can transform Indonesia into an autonomous finished good producer. With its industrial division, giving contribution up to 50% of the nation's GDP, and 20% of it being finished goods, while the other 80% of it being half and raw goods. This absurd statistics only points to Indonesia's enormous potential. However, as much as it is a sad fact that Indonesia can only present itself as a bulk raw exporter, it is also an eye-opener for us, as other countries could hardly even imagine half the things that Indonesia could do that it realizes with the simplest form of manufacturing. However, managing resources and all of these stuff requires a great company, a huge, adequate organization that is able to take responsibility of this handful of problems. That company does not start overnight, and it doesn't come from nothing. However, it matures from somewhere, and that somewhere is SMEs, small to medium enterprises, or UMKM, usaha mikro kecil menengah in Indonesian. It is statistically proven that 99% of all Indonesia's companies were initially SME at one point in their life. That is around 66 million enterprises. SME itself helps contribute 60% to Indonesia's GDP and 97% to its labor force, thus solidifying SME itself as a cornerstone to Indonesia's economics. It's like providing a farmer with a plow. No matter how good the field is, no matter how fertile the land is, it requires a farmer to till it with a plow methodically so that one could receive the harvest and benefit that the land can produce. Indonesia, in this case, could till their field by creating programs that further promote SME development. This could be game-changing, as with more SMEs, more businesses could emerge, thus generating more national revenue, creating businesses opportunities that eventually increase the standard of living of Indonesian from, say, job opportunities. It is equivalent to the biblical principle of reaping what one sows. However, to say that societal success only comes from money alone is antithetical, as it contradicts to many biblical principles. One to mention is Jesus' parable of the rich fool who prioritizes his own material wealth over his spiritual well-being. With this in mind, we now know that SME plays a crucial role in Indonesia's economy. However, their development has been hampered by lack of reforms. Not only that, but also the recent pandemic of COVID-19 that worsens their case. To list the three main problems that SME faces, the first being ineffective government supports, the second being Indonesia's third parties, both public and private organizations such as banks, NCRs, CSRs, that are unable to adequately assist these SME development. And the third being Indonesia's non-conducive market towards SME development. Let us go through this step by step. The first being the ineffective government support. Despite reforms like Job Creation Law number 11 of 2020 and online single submission system, there are still multiple problems at hand. For instance, the majority of SMEs has been plagued by bureaucratic hindrances, limited access to technology, absence of government outreach, and more. Associations like Komnas UKM have blamed OSS to be overly complex, especially for home-based SMEs that makes up 85% of the entire SME in Indonesia. Access to finance are also getting more and more harder for these SMEs, as more SMEs are now deemed as unbankable due to lack of collateral and also poor government documentation. Incoherent policies also plays a huge role in hindering these SME development, like various classification of SME and inconsistent application of regulation throughout the entire government system only creates ambiguity and hinders SME development as a whole. Indonesia's ineffective system as well displays itself as a major roadblock for SME development, where large tax gap, complex regulation, and lack of information deters SME development. Now, diving into the second problem, being Indonesia's third parties, both public and private organizations such as banks, NGOs, CSRs, that are unable to adequately assist SME development. The first problem that I would like to highlight is regarding the KUR program, or the Kredit Usaha Rakyat program. Despite providing Indonesia with 195.6 trillion Indonesian rupiah in disbursement to 3.22 million debtors, the majority of SME are still excluded. Research in Sukabumi, this is due to tight eligibility criteria and poor documentation. Research in Sukabumi and Denda Teledas shows that financial ignorance, high charges of service, and limited access to capital is apparent. Not only that, experts like Peter Abdullah criticizes government programs for its inefficiency and requested for better effort of reallocation of credit. The second problem being Indonesia's financial literacy. Although having an increase to 49.68%, digital final inclusion is still hampered by internet access, digital skills, and private concern. Although youth participants and mobile technology offers opportunities, disparity persists, especially in rural areas. Capacity building programs also displays itself as a main problem in the development of SME. Although having some local success, such as in Kupang's MSMEs, traditional market, interregional disparity, and tight infrastructure hampers overall progress. Although road infrastructures have been proven many times to be very beneficial towards SME logistics and also competitiveness, however, they are still restricted by finance and also technical constraints. Now, for the third main problem that Indonesia faces is Indonesia's non-conducive market towards SME development. One of the problems that I would like to exemplify is its favorability of foreign brands. Most of Indonesia consumers equate foreign brands with qualities of prestige and luxury, with 60% of them favoring international fashion brands, thus causing local producer to give preference towards foreign labels for greater market prospect. With this, Indonesia SME, especially in the fashion division, have difficulty building customer confidence, thus competing solely on price, undermining profitability. Unfair competition as well presents itself as a major problem, with where large companies have better and unparalleled marketing tactics, economics of scale, and better resources compared to SME. This makes it difficult for SME to adopt competitive pricing strategies without sacrificing margins. Excessive production costs and also poor exposure to efficient technologies also curtails flexibility of prices. Poor marketing skills also hinders SME as SME typically are over-dependent on word of mouth or simple digital tools. Women-owned SME, however, nearly half of the sector are even more at a disadvantage due to limited training and technical supports. Infrastructure gaps also displays itself as a major threat, especially in rural ones that constrains market and also increase cost. Other broader issue like poor access to market intelligence, legal support, finance, technology bottlenecks, and insufficient government coordination adds to the issue. Urban SMEs are better equipped with this then allows urban SME to be better equipped with better infrastructure and also institutional backups, while rural SMEs are disproportionately disadvantaged. Such structural constraints only further impedes Indonesia's SME development and global competitiveness as a whole. Now, with that in mind, some might argue that Indonesia's SME sector is under siege from fraudulent practices, where large and well-developed companies misrepresents itself as an SME to gain and exploit government incentives. People argue that with this misrepresentation, it interferes with fair competition and also policies made to benefit genuine SMEs. However, in response, I would like to point out some of the regulations that Indonesia has instilled and enacted to combat this problem. The first being the Ministry Trade Regulation of number 31 of 2023, which enforces a minimum prices of $100 for online import products. Law number 20 of 2008 that legally defines SME classification. Law number 5 of 1999 that penalizes misrepresentation under fair competition laws, and also the Omnibus Law and Government Regulation number 7 of 2021 that offers further protection towards SMEs. But with that in mind, others might also claim that with more stringent regulations to deter fraudulent practices, the overabundance of bureaucracy might also hinder SME from gaining these government incentives, thus acting as a double-edged sword dilemma. In response, I would like to exemplify certain countries that has been able to deal with this double-edged sword dilemma effectively. The first being Singapore. Singapore is a prime example where real-time monitoring, one-step regulation, and also tax incentives can solve said problem. Programs like Indiana's Jan Dan Yojama and Malaysia's SME banks have promoted financial inclusion and the ease of access to bank accounts for informal SMEs. However, beyond regulation, the cost to benefit of the implementation of good logistics, efficiency, and fair resource distribution are key points that others might point to. In response, I would like to point out at Germany in its case with its 279 billion euro logistics sectors, marking it a ranking of 3rd in the world's Bank Logistic Index. Chile as well is also a well-positioned logistical country with digital customs, cold chain logistics, green transport, and so on. Thus showing that long-term investments, not shortcuts, are the key to deliver sustainable SME growth and national competitiveness. However, with that in mind, now that we have covered all the benefits of further supporting SMEs in Indonesia, along with the problems that encourages us to do this call to action, whether it be in the bank's bureaucratic inefficiency, in the government, restricted financial and digital literacy due to inadequate educational systems, or the adverse business environment and harsh real-world conditions for SME growth, these all suggest the urgency for better and more engaged government support for SME growth. However, if we do not do anything, if we just let everything be as it is, then Indonesia will have an enormous problem at its hand. SMEs that make 60.51% of the nation's GDP will be less efficient, as more and more SME will have less and less opportunities to grow. Regional gaps will play a huge role in controlling the development of SME in rural areas, thus rendering Indonesia as a whole to be weakly integrated. Soon Indonesian owners will always lag behind, and also will lag behind as time progresses on, leaving them in dust, perplexed and confused with the technology available there is and there will be to come. Even though behind one of those so-called technological gimmicks might be the key to their success in business. This will eventually lead to SME being completely overshadowed by larger companies or even foreign ones, leaving no chance for them to compete. Thus, with the longer it takes, the more SME owners going out of business, bankrupt, and also failing as a whole. And soon, Indonesia will start to discourage away from entrepreneurship, innovating, and also realizing their dreams, and opt for a more safer and more versatile career of being a 9-to-5 employee. With no innovation, poor integration, and also with no innovation, poor integration, no competition in market, and Indonesia's primary contributor to its GDP not functioning, would Indonesia flourish? Would Indonesia make a sustainable environment for its people? There's an old proverb that goes, ignorance is not the absence of knowledge, but the refusal to seek it. Just like we cannot live in blindness, but instead live for a better life, raising our status quo to higher levels from generations to generations. because we cannot live with what is when what could be can be. So let us then build a greater Indonesia, one generation at a time for our future, one generation at a time for our future generation, and for the future of Indonesia, one SME at a time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Galvin. Good job. Our panelists today are Ms. Maymay and Mr. Tony. I'll let Ms. Maymay go first with questions.
Thank you so much, Galvin. I enjoy your presentation. You have tackled such a hard and complex matter about SMEs in Indonesia, and you are correct. This is the heart of our economic growth for many, many years. Now, just for a clarification, this is my first question, because you use SMEs and MSMEs interchangeably.
Yeah.
So let me ask you why.
This is because I believe that SMEs and MSMEs are quite similar to one another and also falls under the same sort of category, although it has its own differences, and it is also widely interchangeably used in these research paper that I learned and I also read.
All right, because probably you're correct. The data probably under one MSE, right? With micro.
Yes.
So then if I may ask you, so what is the different category between micro, small, and middle enterprises?
Okay, thank you for the question. For that, I was already prepared a note for this. With micro enterprises being categorized from assets from anything under and equal to 50 million Indonesian rupiah, with an annual revenue of 300 million Indonesian rupiah, anything under 300 million Indonesian rupiah. Small SMEs, small enterprises being assets that is generally between 50 million rupiah to 500 million rupiah, and also an annual revenue of 300 million rupiah to 2.5 billion rupiah. And for medium enterprises, assets that falls under the category of 500 million rupiah and also to 10 billion rupiah, with annual revenue of 2.5 billion rupiah and 50 billion rupiah.
All right. So then, if we talk about the revenue itself, because it seems that there is this big gap, right?
Yes.
From 50 billion, the middle one, the middle enterprise, up to the micro one. In my data is up to 2 billion. No, 50 trillion to 5 billion.
Yes, correct.
Small crack. So then, I would like to understand what is your thought process that you think the business scale that handle 5 billion a year is actually under the same category of problem with those who generate 50 trillion a year.
Okay, thank you for the question. First of all, I would like to point out that yes, although that each enterprises from different sectors that falls under the category of SMEs might experience different problems at different levels, although some might not be comparable to one another. However, I would like to point out that the problem with this entire thesis is pointing out the fact that in Indonesia there is this regional disparity where one area could have an SME that is, for example, a medium enterprises that has an asset of 500 million to 10 billion, while others in other SME in other places, like for example Sulawesi or NTB, who that cannot even crack or reach the level of small enterprises. And this is a major concern that I would like to point out, and I have pointed out in this entire thesis.
Okay, that makes sense, because I think it will be more beneficial and up to the point if you separate them. Because just like you said, if a business enterprise has assets like the medium enterprise,
Yes.
of course it seems that they will be bankable, correct?
Yes.
Unlike the micro one.
Yeah.
So, but I do understand why you put them together.
Yes.
Okay. Then my next question is that, do you have a study case? Because your goal is that you would like to actually advance the medium-sized businesses into larger scale,
Yes.
right? So then do you have any example? Which business coming out of MSEs that actually have been successful in upgrading the company?
Okay, thank you for the question. To give an example of an SME that has developed into a full-fledged enterprises, or even reaching to trillionaire, we could see from, for example, an online shopping store like Tokopedia that is founded in Indonesia and has developed from, I think, 2009 all the way to today, generating revenues up to trillions of Indonesian rupiah.
Okay, that's awesome. So then in your case study about Tokopedia, what is different then? How could they become a large enterprise like that, unlike other MSEs?
Thank you for the question. Tokopedia is the case for those fortunate SMEs, those with good educational background, financial literacy, and also digital financial inclusion that knows how to utilize all the tools that the government has give, all the helping hands that the government has provided, and thus projecting itself as a better and well-developed enterprises. As a well-developed enterprise. However, the difference between Tokopedia and, for example, a local tukang baso is that some local tukang baso might not understand how to even use their mobile phone optimally so that they could generate better revenue and thus developing their business. However, Tokopedia, in the other sense, is able to utilize all of the government incentives and also programs so that they could develop into a better and also great company that we know of today.
That's a good answer. I think you tackle it well because you actually compare and contrast to opposite the end of the spectrum, right? From tukang baso who probably just generate revenue of 25 million, maybe I don't know,
Yes.
to Tokopedia who generate trillions right now. So
Yeah.
that I hope that you're going to tackle the specific sector because the problem is too complex, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then my next question is that, so it means that, like Tokopedia, it sounds like they find a way, even though the government system is currently, let's say, just like you said, maybe for some it's unbankable, or there are a regulation problem, but still some can strive. Or even, for example, like small businesses, for example, like we have a lot of coffee shop who actually suddenly become big, right? And become even become a public company. So my question is that, do you have a specific regulation that either you can help those who are in micro businesses like tukang baso, or maybe like middle one, for example, like maybe some of our parents right now, right, have business like, let's say, because if you own a store like Bengkel,
Yeah.
it's going to be considered MSEs, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so do you have any specific solution? So then either tukang baso or our parents' businesses, they can actually develop into large-scale businesses.
Okay, thank you for the question. But I would like to clarify that are you asking my personal opinion on the solution that could help SME as a whole, or are you asking what the government has done?
Because, well, you are pointing out the weaknesses from the government perspective.
Yes,
Right?
yeah,
And you would like to ask a call for action.
yes.
But I don't see any specific solution that you would like ask the government to do.
Okay.
Well, if you would like to handle the whole spectrum of MSE, go ahead. But if you would like to tackle the micro specifically or the small or medium, it's also up to you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. To answer that, first of all, I would like to I would like to point out that the government itself has done a superb job in also trying to build SME, especially after the COVID-19 era, so that it could further develop, right, and become fully fledged businesses, thus solidifying Indonesia in global market competitiveness. But the problem that I mentioned in my thesis is that there are still many challenges that Indonesia must face. One of them being interregional disparity, or for example, inconsistent regulation. But there are some also, like the COOL program that I mentioned earlier, that also help tremendously to countless SMEs, although not to all, but it is a considerable amount that we can consider that we can also consider as something good and beneficial, where Indonesia allocate money for people to loan, and also borrow so that they could create and realize their business ideas into reality. However, my personal opinion on how to further make this motion execute more perfectly, I guess, is through the. I think it's in my problem where it's the resource distributions, the fair of resource distributions, and also logistics, implementation of good logistics, so that all SMEs could obtain the same benefits that other SMEs in more beneficial areas could have. Like, for example, SME in Jawa will have better opportunities than SME in, for example, Jayapura or in Papua. And so if Indonesia could provide better logistics and also fair resource distribution, then I believe that the same opportunities that SME get in Java could be then delivered to SMEs in Papua, and not only in Papua, but also Sulawesi, Kalimantan, NTT, and so on.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I think that's really good answer. So just like you said, we need more opportunities equally, not only in Java, but for other islands also.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Galvin.
Yeah. Galvin,
Yes, Mr.
congratulations for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr.
And I want to compliment you for, how to say, a research that is extensive, I believe, and your paper is quite long. Your citation or your book and resources that you read is quite many. So
Yes.
I know you have done a lot of research.
Yes.
I would like to start with a question. So this topic seems to be a little bit far from students' life.
Yes.
Why you choose this topic? Why in the first place?
Okay. Thank you for the question. To answer that question, it is to my utmost nationalism to further encourage students and also us, the younger generation, to bring this problem to light, so that Indonesia could have a better future, not only for us, but also for generations to come. Because as an Indonesian, I would like to feel proud that my country would be a great and prosperous country.
Wow, very good. Yeah, I even more proud of you now. Now let's continue with the question. Yeah. Would like to ask a few things. First, let's start with the core. Yeah.
Yes.
Have you mentioned what is core?
Kredit usaha rakyat.
Kredit usaha rakyat in
Yeah.
English?
I don't think I translate it to English, but it is like a reallocation of credit, some sort of that.
Yeah, kredit usaha rakyat. So it's the credit for small
Enterprises.
enterprise. Yeah, usaha kan.
Yeah.
Sip. Very good. Now, the reason you mention this is you highlight a failure of effectiveness, right? Like
Yes, correct.
effectiveness of core.
Yeah.
How this is related to the government?
Okay. Thank you for the question, and I would like to answer that question. I would like to point out that this falls under the category of Indonesia's third parties. The problem about KUR falls under the second main problem of this entire thesis, which is Indonesia's third parties, both public and private, like banks, NGOs, CSR, that are unable to adequately assist SME development. Now, this core program is initially legalized by the government and also instilled by the government, but it is not the government that enact this so-called core program. However, they let these third-party organizations, both public and private, to distribute this money and credit reallocation to businesses that are in need.
Very well. Yeah. So it's the connection. Yeah. Yeah. So in your case, the bank that you mentioned here is BRI.
Yes.
How BRI is connected to the government?
So BRI is Bank Rakyat Indonesia, and Bank Rakyat Indonesia, I believe, is nationally owned and owned by the government. So all the money there is managed by government officials. Therefore, government also plays some sort of role in Indonesia's economics, although not every sector of economics. And with the enactment of the core program, the government could play its part as well in trying to enact it by giving it to their divisions of these publicly owned banks like BRI and other and also other publicly owned banks.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's continue with the. I would like to ask you about what is actually a problem with the OSS. Have you mentioned? By the way, have you mentioned what is OSS?
Yes. To answer that question, OSS is an online single submission system where business or for example, if I would like to create a business, then I will have to register in OSS so that I could create a business license, some sort of business license, so that my business could be registered and identified by the government.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit in your presentation, but you have more here.
Yes.
So can you explain a little bit deeper what is actually the problem with OSS?
Okay. Thank you for the question. And to answer that question, the problem with OSS is that most of these SMEs, although OSS has been credited to being simple and also effective, but most of these SMEs are like technologically disadvantaged in the sense that they do not know how to operate their mobile devices or even any devices per se, only surviving through their personal bank accounts and never having a registered business account. And so this OSS system failed, although not entirely, due to it missing a partner, which is the increase of digital literacy and also digital finance inclusion. Because with two of these combined, then OSS could be fully applicable towards all Indonesia. For example, if I were in Singapore, because everybody there is very up to date with all the digital techs, then if there was an OSS version in Singapore, then everybody could use and apply for OSS effectively. However, in Indonesia, people, for example, like again, rural areas like in Papua or even NTT, NTB, they do not know or might not even have heard what OSS is. And so they live some sort of like in a darkness where they try to rub around and try to find success blindly.
So in that scenario or in that case, what actually you're suggesting?
Thank you for the question. In that scenario, I would suggest that instead of redefining what OSS is, because I believe that OSS is already a good thing, I would suggest that Indonesia increase financial literacy and also digital inclusion towards all Indonesian SME owner, all from Sabang sampai Merauke, so that everybody could have this same opportunity that most of this so-called lucky SMEs could have.
Okay, very good. So in that case, when you said Indonesian government should further support SME,
Yes.
do you think is support to SME is needed, or or actually education, or what that you think is suggested?
Okay, thank you for the question. To answer the question, of course, to build this country, it does not only require money alone. Because again, in my disclaimer, I said that equating societal success with money alone might be antithetical to many biblical worldview, in which one of them is being Jesus' parable of the rich fool. And so this applies to this case as well, where Indonesia's development does not solely depend on the economic market, but yes, of course, it also depends on education and also health, living quality and health. However, my topics only specify in education, and therefore, if you would like to ask me what, on economy, and so if you like to ask me what part of the economy should Indonesia improve, then I would of course say SME. Why is that? Because I believe that Indonesia is comprised mostly by middle to low income people that actually generates and runs the economy and money in Indonesia, while these minority of middle to upper classes only indulge in international market. So therefore, Indonesia's money is mostly allocated in these SMEs, and the money circulates mostly in this SME.
Okay, the Q&A time is over. Good job, Galvin. You've passed the test. Okay, thank you guys. We will meet Galvin, family, friends, and panelists will meet over here for photos. And then in 5 minutes, only about 5 minutes, we will have